Hey guys, welcome to our second check-in day. All right, so we're just going to review a little bit about the arcs, finding arcs, because we're going to need that for our next unit. So I know we just took a test on it, but we want to make sure that we review and that we are ready to go. All right, so this did not PDF well for me, so we're going to change this to circle. Given circle G, where segment OY is the diameter, and the measure of arc BY is 6x plus 18, and the measure of arc OB is 8x plus 10. I'm going to start by highlighting my diameter, and that's segment OY. So the reason why I'm highlighting my diameter is it's an important segment. It splits my circle into two. I want to note that the measure of arc BY is 6x plus 16, and the measure of arc OB is 8x plus 10. So there's several things that they're asking you to find. Let's just start by figuring out and determining x. So what I'm going to ask everybody to do is go ahead and pause your video. And I want you to set up your equation for x and then restart it, and you can check it against the equation that I have. Okay. So after pausing our video, hopefully you're able to look at this and see that, as we've been talking about, we have two parts here, part plus part, and those two parts make up a half circle. We can see that it goes from one end of the diameter to the other end of the diameter. So when you do part plus part, it's going to equal your whole of 180 degrees because that's half your circle. So we're going to sum in our two parts. So you're getting 6x plus 16 plus 8x plus 10, and that's going to equal 180 degrees. So what I want you to do from here, go ahead, pause the video, solve, and check what you get for x. All right. So follow along, make sure your x matches what mine is, what I get for mine. I'm going to combine my like terms. I get 14x plus, combine my other set of like terms, 16 and 10 plus 26 equals 180. Subtract by 26 on both sides. So you're left then with 14x equals 154. And you're going to divide by 14 on both sides to get your x value. So x equals 11. All right, so now the next thing, now that we know what x is, we can substitute x for both of our arcs, for arc BY and arc OB. So go ahead, pause the video, and then go ahead and substitute in. All right, so your measure of arc YB, we're going to substitute in our x is 6 times 11 plus 6. And so you're going to get for that measure of arc YB, you are going to get 82. Let me just trust myself here. And then when you sub in for measure of arc OB, 8 times 11 plus 10, measure of arc OB, oops, is going to be equal to 98. Okay, so now we know the measure of this arc is 98. We know the measure of this arc is 92. Now remember, I like you to label all of your arcs before you go and try and answer. And the measure of this other semicircle here is 180. All right, go ahead now and pause your video. Write down what you're going to get for arc BO and arc BOY. All right, so after looking at your diagram, I'm hoping that you saw that the measure of arc BO is 98 degrees. Just goes from B to O. Now, when you get into the measure of arc BOY, you have to start at point B. You have to start at point B, go in the direction of point O, and then end when you get to Y. So there's two arcs, there's two parts that are going to equal the whole. So when we're doing two parts that are going to equal the whole, we have to do part plus part, and that's going to equal our whole. So in this case, it's going to be 278. Okay, go ahead, check your answers, pause if you have to, write anything else down. But that's what we should have for finding the measure of the arcs for example number 1. Okay, in example number 2, we want to find the measure of arc AC. So, from A to C, this is my unknown. This is what I want to find. I'm given the measure of arc AB, and I can see that that's 80 degrees. And I'm given the measure of arc BC, and I can see that's 150 degrees. All right, so I'm going to ask you guys to pause it for a second, see if you can find the measure of arc AC, and then I'll walk you through it so that you guys can check your work. All right, when we look at this problem, we're looking at there being 3 parts. There's 3 arcs. So we have part plus part plus part for all 3 parts, and that has to equal our whole. When we put these 3 parts together, we make a full circle, so our whole is 360 degrees. We know 2 parts are 80 and 150, plus our third part. Combined our like terms, and then subtracted to find the missing part. And you should get 130 for that measure of arc AC. Now, for those of you who didn't set it up like an equation and just wrote this down, just added the 2 parts and subtracted it from 360, that's fine. You don't have to write it as an equation. You can just add your 2 parts together. I'm just showing you guys where that idea comes from. Okay, go ahead, pause, write anything down, correct anything that you have to before starting on example 3. All right, when we go to example 3 now, I need to determine the measure of arc GC. So we'll just use this color. We'll say this is GC. And then we're given, we can see 248. That's the measure of arc GMC. So now I'm looking, I have 2 parts this time. I don't have 3, I have 2. So I'm taking 2 parts. And what do those parts equal? Well, they equal full circle again. They equal 360. I know 1 out of the 2 parts, but I'm missing the other one. And then I'm going to subtract on both sides, subtract on both sides. And so the missing part that you're getting, oops, and hopefully you guys spotted my error. Let me fix that. It should be 360 and not 260. I apologize for that. So yeah, when you subtract your part, you should be getting 112, and that's your measure of arc GC. Okay, so go ahead and pause, check your work against mine. And again, as a reminder, if you just did that 360 minus 248, that's all you showed me, that's fine. That's fine. That's you taking your part from your whole. Again, just showing you how we're getting there, how we're understanding how to do that. All right, and on we go now to example number 4. So when we look at example number 4, I want to find the measure of arc JK. So JK is right here. Now look at this one. Be careful with this one. All right, I have the measure of arc JH. I have the measure of arc HF. And I have the measure of arc KF. How many parts do I have? How many parts? Hopefully you guys are saying you have 4 parts. So this time I'm going to say, well, I have to do part plus part plus part plus part. So all 4 parts equal my whole, which is 360. How many parts do they give me? Well, they give me 3. And I'm just missing that last one there. All right, so then I'm going to combine my like terms. I'm going to combine the 78, the 30, and the 112. And you're going to get 220 degrees. Oops. And you're going to subtract what those parts are from each side so that you get your missing part, and that's 140. So the measure of arc JK, measure of arc JK equals 140 degrees. That's your final answer. All right, this one says determine the measure of arc DC. So let's look at that. That's D to C. That's from here to here. To find that measure of arc DC, I need this missing piece here, EC. So let's just first, before I focus on the part that I highlighted in orange, just focus on the other part. So I know the measure of arc DE is 55. I know the measure of arc EC is unknown. And I know the measure of arc DMC is 245. So go ahead, pause the video, set up your equation, see if you can find the measure of arc EC first. Let's go for the measure of arc EC first. So hopefully what you did is part plus part plus part. You saw that we had 3 parts equals our whole of 360. We're given 2 parts of 245 plus 55 plus our other missing part is going to equal 360. When I do that 245 plus the 55, I'm going to get 300. So the missing part equals 360. Subtract by 300 on both sides. And your part's going to be 60. Now that's just for that green that pink missing arc. So this is, sorry guys, this right here is 60 degrees. Okay, so now I have that missing piece. But the question was to find the measure of arc DC. So I still have to find that measure of arc DC. That's my question, that's my whole. And so if you look at that measure that I have, it's made up of 2 parts. So the measure of arc DC is going to be adding those 2 parts, 60 plus 55. Sorry, guys. I'm running out of space. Here we go, 60 plus 55. So the measure of arc DC is equal to 115 degrees. And that's your final answer. All right. Let's look at example 6 now. We're given circle E, and this time we have 2 diameters. We have diameter, our segment AB. And then we have our segment DC. So we want to, I want you guys to go ahead, pause your video, see if you can label the arcs, and then find the missing measures. When you're ready, unpause and you can watch the work that I do. What I remind you of is that your diameters cut your circles into half. So that would mean, let's just focus on this yellow diameter, this segment AB. That would mean that this half is 180 and the top half is 180. So both of these semicircles are 180 degrees, okay? When I look down here at arc ADB, so at arc ADB, that's my semicircle. I see that semicircle is made up of 2 parts. So this missing part here of DB, and then this known part here of 54. So if I want to find the measure of that arc DB, I can just take my part plus my part. My 2 parts equals my whole. I know one part is 54. I'm looking for my other part. Subtracting by 54 on both sides. And the missing part is 126. Okay. Now, when I look at my second arc, arc AFB, the top half, I see there's actually 3 parts. but I only know 1 out of the 3. So I'm not quite there yet that I can use that. So I'm going to erase my yellow markings. Ooh, if I can erase this without erasing all my other work. I got to put that purple back in. Okay. And now I'm going to focus on using my green. I'm going to use my green diameter. So my green diameter again splits my circle up into two 180-degree semicircles. So here's one, and here's the other one. All right. So here I see I'm missing segment arc CB, arc CB. So that semicircle is made up of 2 parts. And then my hole is 180 because it's a semicircle. I know one of those parts is 126. I'm looking for my other part, and that's going to equal 180 then. So I'm going to subtract by the 126 on both sides, and then I get 54. All right, when I look at the other part of my circle, I again see that there are 3 arcs that make up that semicircle, but this time I know 2 out of the 3 arcs, and I'm just missing this guy here. So if I want to find that arc FA, I say, well, I have 3 smaller arcs that when you add them together, they equal 180 degrees. I know 2 out of the 3. So I'm going to add that 54 and 78 together. And I'm getting 132. And subtracting by 132 on both sides. So for that other missing arc, that other missing part, I'm getting 48. So that's the measure of arc FA is 48 degrees. All right, so now I have the measure of all of these. So let's go. If I want to find the measure, the first one it says find the measure of that arc AF. So from A to F, it's 1 arc. So that's 48 degrees. If it says to find the measure of arc DB, I'm going to go from point D to point B on the arc. That arc is made up of 1 arc. So it's 126 degrees. All right, now I'm going to find the measure of arc FCD. So I'm going to start at point F. Starting at point F, going in the direction of C, and ending when I hit D. So when I look at this one, I collect 1, 2, 3 parts. So I have to add those 3 parts together in order to get my hole. So I'm going to do 78 plus 54 plus 126, part plus part plus part. That is going to equal my hole. And that's going to be 234. Okay. All right, guys. So those are all of them that we have for today. Make sure that your work matches our work so that when we check you in for the check-in day, we can give you credit for your attendance. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We'll see you on Thursday.